Hello again, everyone. This is our first Eternal Masters draft. We're going to go ahead and hop right in. I'm going to go ahead and preface our picks by saying I don't actually know what is in the set exactly as far as archetypes go, so I'm just going to kind of wing it, I think, and take the most interesting looking cards that we can. That said, Unexpectedly Absent is a great card to start with. It's an instant speed removal spell and a very good color, I think. Just looking at some of the spoilers for the set and what's in it, and potentially a game ender, honestly, just being able to tuck any of their creatures or something far enough away that it'll never reappear, or to kind of deny them a draw or something by putting a low value creature on top of their library. So that said, what are we going to follow that up with? So I know that blue-white flyers is potentially a credible way to go about things, since I've watched maybe one or two drafts of LSV, professional player play, and he advocates Phantom Monster quite heavily. Just a 4-mana 3/3 flyer, nothing too exciting about it, but definitely a powerful threat. There's also interesting cards like a Havoc Demon flyer that when he dies, he essentially board wipes. Gives all creatures -5/-5 until end of turn. If that doesn't kill everything, then I don't know what will. There's a Honden here. You can play a number of these in like a control-y kind of deck, and also a Pilgrim's Eye. I think I'm just going to take the Phantom Monster, try and maybe steer away into like a blue-white Flyers deck or something. And we can already follow this up with a Sprite Noble, which kind of fits in that theme. It's a 3-drop 2/2 flyer that passively pumps the toughness of all other flyers that you control, and you can tap it to give them an additional power as well. Aside from that, I don't really see anything else too interesting. There's Extract from Darkness, which I think is potentially a good reanimation spell. If you have a way to like entomb or put some powerful creatures into the graveyard, then you can Extract from Darkness, bring them right back. But I don't think we want to move into that quite yet until we actually have some threatening creatures to do that with. There's also Eyeblight's Ending. I believe that elves are likely to be a strong archetype, so this would not be very good against them. If you're in the elf deck, though, then that would certainly be a worthwhile card. I think I'm just going to take the Noble here, try and get maybe like a Rift Watcher or something back. There's not a whole lot else that I'm seeing I would want for a blue-white flyer deck, but we'll see what we got. War Priest of Thune, Warden of Evo's Isle, a Deep Analysis, and a White Mane Lion would all certainly go into our deck. It's also a Flamekin Zealot. I would guess that like a red-white going wide kind of strategy would be happy to pick this up. Something with a lot of tokens. There's also like Raise the Alarm, for instance, and Rally the Peasants, I think. It's an instant speed +2/+0 kind of anthem for everyone that you can flash back. So you get a bunch of low drops, white and red or something, and then Flamekin Zealot and Rally the Peasants to deal a ton of damage out of nowhere. There's also a Werebear, which is certainly quite cool. If we were going to like a Reanimator deck or something, then you can maybe use this to work off of milling yourself. But I think I'm going to take either the Warden or the Priest. I would absolutely love the Warden here, of course, if we're playing Flyers, but I think I'm just going to take the War Priest, honestly. I really like a 2-drop that is good on turn 2, and that also has some enchantment hate. From what I understand, this is a pretty decent set as far as enchantments go. It has a number of threatening enchantments, so you're going to want a way to deal with them. And this is a great main deckable card since he's just a 2/2 for 2, which I don't think will ever be bad in any format. And he has some upside as well if you can bounce him or flicker him, which blue-white is the color for that. Here we got the Rally of the Peasants I was mentioning. Someone's going to probably take this right after that Flamekin Zealot. For us, however, there's a Karakas. Oh, I should also go ahead and mention that this is a Phantom Swiss draft. So it's Swiss. We're going to get 3 matches out no matter what. It's also Phantom, so that's why Karakas would be passed here. I think I might just take it. I don't know if it's actually going to help us too much, but we can use it to bounce our opponent's legendary. I wouldn't mind the Mistral Charger also, but I think Karakas is powerful enough. It's worth to take if we're in the color. It's also, I guess, a pretty decent sign that we might be passed more white in the future. But if we get a good card like a Brago, I think, then Karakas would be an excellent way to protect him as well, just by holding up a single mana. Here, not a whole lot for us. There's Wake of Vultures if we were to go into black, and it's just not a very impressive card. A Cephalid Sage, which I guess could be interesting if we were to have Threshold. you can play them later in the game to kind of sculpt your hand. But I think I'm going to take the Deep Analysis. I'll also point out the Civic Wayfinder here. I think this is a great card in the Elf deck, and just in any green deck, I suppose, to fix your mana a bit. It's like a Borderland Ranger from one of the Innistrad sets. But I think I'm just going to take the Deep Analysis for some card draw. Ooh, this is good. Alright, so we got Welkin Guide, Aven Riftwatcher, and Silent Departure, all of which I'd be happy to play. So I think it's going to be between the white cards here. So we've got a 3-drop and a 5-drop. 2/3 flyer with Vanishing that gains you a tiny bit of life when it enters the battlefield. Or a 2/2 flyer that gives a creature, potentially itself, +2/+2 and flying, although without haste or anything like that. I don't know why you would give itself the +2/+2. But you could like pick up a War Priest of Thune and then fly in there with a Sprite Noble to protect it or something like that. So that said, I think we're going to likely want, I think the 3-drop more. It's got some life gain even though it vanishes. I think that it will be worth having as just an earlier drop that can block for a couple of turns and also gain some life against a threat or something. There is a foil Wasteland. Whoever opened that is probably kicking themselves, regretting the fact that this is a Phantom event. But I guess that's one way to destroy our Karakas if need be. So whoever gets that will have to be wary of it in the sideboard or something. I don't think you can main deck a Wasteland here. Could be wrong. There's definitely a ton of fixing. I think might be the case where every pack has a Khans land, a dual land that taps for either color and gains a life. I think I'm just going to take another Phantom Monster. Second Thoughts would have been okay as a removal spell, but yeah, Phantom Monsters all the way. If we can get a Warden of Evos Isle, then potentially like playing 2 of these or something on turn 6, that could be fantastic follow-up. Here, there's another Rally the Peasants, also a Milliken, can help ramp up a little bit, and a Seal of Cleansing, which I might just take. It's basically a disenchant on a permanent. You can just play it and forget about it, wait for them to play something until they can somehow get rid of it. And with all the Hondens and whatnot floating around, I think it's going to be worthwhile having this in the sideboard. Also, an artifact. It deals with an artifact. Alright, there's the Havoc Demon back, as well as a Deadbridge Shaman, some roots. So, could be a green-black elf deck to our left floating around. Have to be wary of. I would not mind a Tranquil Cove, of course. We don't really have too much in the ways of demanding mana base yet. Just the 2 white from the Unexpectedly Absent, 2 blue from the Sprite Noble. I think I just want the Silent Departure, however. I think the dual land is more replaceable than that. Here is a red-black dual land, which I don't think we'll be needing. Also a Gaia's Blessing. I guess it's a way to prevent yourself from milling, or decking yourself by accident. You get to shuffle a bunch of cards from your graveyard, draw a card, and put it right back in there. That said, I think I'm just going to take the Cephalid Sage. I don't expect to play it, but take it. Oh, wow. So, Flamekin Zealot still around, despite there being like 2 Rally the Peasants we've already seen. This guy coming around a second time. That could be worth noting. There's also a Thornwood Falls if we wanted to splash green, but I think I might just take the Flamekin Zealot. Not yet sure where we're going exactly, but I guess it's a good idea to keep ourselves moderately open. I'm going to go ahead and take Dream Twist here. I don't expect to play it, however. And a Tooth and Claw. Alright, so where do we stand? We've got a number of powerful flyers, and there's another one. Unfortunately not in the colors we're looking to play. And just a couple of strong effects with Unexpectedly Absent, War Priest of Thune, Silent Departure, there's another one. Right, all that said, what are we going to take coming into this pack? I think Carbonize is definitely a good card. It's a Lightning Bolt for 3 mana that prevents them from regenerating, and if they would die, then they're exiled as well. So kind of like an Incinerate more than a Lightning Bolt. There's also Rorik's Bladewing, just a generic 6/5 flying haste dragon. No cool enter the battlefield or dying effects or fire breathing or anything like that. There's also a Honden. I think I might be interested in taking this. If you can land a Honden and just kind of have a healthy life total at that point, it's very difficult to lose, I think, because you're drawing 2 cards a turn, even more if you have an additional Honden. You do have to be wary of decking yourself, however, so that'll be worth thinking about. There's also finally a Worn Power Stone. I think it's between the Power Stone and the Honden. I'm just going to take the Honden here. Power Stone is nice, but I think having some late game card draw is certainly what we're looking for. Wow, okay, so this is going to be a difficult choice. We've got Seal of Cleansing, which might come around. I'll be happy to get a second one. Definitely don't need an elite Vanguard just yet. I wouldn't mind getting a Glacial Wall or a Counterspell to round out our commons. Just Glacial Wall to kind of hold the line on the ground. Counterspell once you've established your air presence with some Phantom monsters or something. If you're at parity on the board and you just have a Counterspell to beat whatever their trump might be. There's also Chain Lightning, fantastic card. I think it's between the Merfolk Looter and the Duplicant, however. Probably just going to take the Duplicant. Enters the battlefield, it is a removal spell. Anything that's non-token, it'll exile. And it is a 2/4, I guess, if you choose not to use that effect, if there's nothing on the field. But can't imagine playing this into an open board. But it will gain the power and toughness and creature types of whatever it did exile. And if you can find a way to flicker it, again, in these colors, or bounce it back to hand, then it's repeatable removal. I would absolutely love Merfolk Looter. I'm not going to count on that coming back around, but I don't think I can pass the Duplicant here. Go ahead and move this over, kind of get a better picture of what we got. All right, there's a Black Honden, a Daze, a Welkin Guide, another Dream Twist, and some red stuff. Sneak Attack. Could be pretty exciting. Someone's going to have a strong red deck, most likely. But I think we're going to take either the Daze, maybe the Honden, and try and get a couple of like Dismal Black Backwaters or a Scoured Barrens to splash it. Comes down a turn earlier than the blue one, and just making them discard a card. If they're holding up like instants or something and their hand is empty, then they've got to play them on their own turn. Otherwise, they'll be discarded on your turn, and thus they can't use it. So, wondering if a Daze could be at all playable here. Doesn't really do a whole lot for us. Like, we don't have a Merfolk Looter yet, where you'd want to bounce a land back to hand to discard later in the game. But I can definitely see force spiking somebody, just countering their spell if they don't pay mana, if they tap out for it. I think I want to give that a try. Obviously, it gets worse after you hit them with the first one. It's much easier to play around, but I think it could definitely do a lot of damage here in what we've got going. Wow, okay, Goblin Trenches. Is it too late to just completely do a 180 kind of into, I guess, more a 90-degree turn since we're already playing white? Drop the blue and go red-white with a Flamekin Zealot and Goblin Trenches. Certainly something to think about. If not that, I would be absolutely happy to pick up a Peregrine Drake. This card is extremely good, especially with Warden of Evos Isle. Just by itself, it's a free creature, 2/3 for 5 that flies, works well with Sprite Nobles, and once you play it, it untaps enough lands that you can play a second spell in the same turn. And if you have a what are they called? A Warden of Evos Isle, then it actually generates mana for you by costing 4 and untapping 5. There's also a Soul Catcher, which is a nice early flyer that grows with the more flyers that die. I think I'm just going to take the Peregrine Drake, though. It's kind of painful to pass that Goblin Trenches, but we'll see if it's the right decision. Okay, we got a Glacial Wall and an Elite Vanguard. Nothing too exciting there, but up here we've got Call the Skybreaker, as well as a Jetting Glass Kite. So Glass Kite, just a 4/4 flyer that kind of has like a bubble around it that you have to break by targeting it with something first before you can actually target it with a spell or ability. So it's a little evasive in that it flies, and it's also somewhat difficult to deal with. It is quite costly, though. I think if we're going to go for like a big finisher, then Call the Skybreaker is definitely stronger. So it's just 7 mana, put a 5/5 flyer token onto the battlefield, and you can retrace it, meaning you can cast it once again by discarding a land. So it's kind of hard to pull off. You need 7 to cast it in the first place, and then to retrace it, you need 8, 9, 10 lands. And sometimes it's just not necessary, but I think it's cool enough that I'm interested in taking that. And now I just want to fill out the earlier curve as best I can. There's another Flamekin, another Seal, also Necropotence. I miss this card very much so, from like, 15 years ago or something, first printed in Ice Age. It was actually called one of the worst cards of Ice Age, and then it went on to dominate a number of tournaments, including a Pro Tour. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll get to play it here. Also a Sanger Autocrat, pretty interesting black card here. So I don't think we really actually are going to be playing a Benevolent Bodyguard, because he could have some uses by protecting a really important creature or something like that. But I might just kind of reluctantly take the Seal of Cleansing here as another answer to problematic cards. I don't really think we need a Screeching Scob or anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that. And once again, we're really hoping to get some good 2s and 3s to fill out the curve. We could also take a Scoured Barrens here to splash a black card like Honden or something. Tranquil Cove, also Animate Dead, which isn't that threatening if you've got multiple Seal of Cleansing and War Priest of Thune cards in your deck. And finally, a Relic of Progenitus, which is also quite good against Animate Dead. Could definitely see taking the Relic, but I kind of just want to have some more mana consistency. Not really sure here. I think I'm just going to take the Tranquil Cove. Relic is a fine card, but I don't know if you would necessarily main deck it. And I don't know how powerful the Reanimator deck will actually be. Haven't really seen many big creatures come by. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that. And I think we're going to follow it up with an Una's Grace. A card like Desperate Ravings is very good, even if you're not playing the flashback deck, like Burning Vengeance, I believe, is where this would shine the most, or possibly a Reanimator deck if you want to take a chance of discarding your big creature and then reanimating it. I could definitely see playing this in that, but I'm just happy to play this card because you're going to end up drawing 4, discarding 2 in itself, so it is card advantage at the minor downside that it's random. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take an Una's Grace here as some late game card draw to go along with our Honden. There's a Windscarred Crag to splash some red, although I don't know what we would splash. Probably not the Flamekin Zealot. Wildfire Emissary is quite good. There's also the Worn Power Stone. I think this might be our original pack coming back. And then a Milliken. I'm just going to take the Worn Power Stone, I think. That's a good way to get up to casting Call the Skybreaker and not needing so many lands. So I could definitely see taking that. Wow, that's a late Huntmaster. I think this is one of the kind of paragons of the elf deck. Also a Night's Whisper. Great in a slower blue-black control deck, maybe, if we were black instead of white. There's a Phyrexian Rager and another Seal of Cleansing. I think I'm just going to take the Glacial Wall, however. Shaping up to be a very control-y deck. And that said, I think I'm going to take the Honden here and try and get a single dual land to splash it. I think that's worth doing. It goes the more Hondens you have, the better, of course. And I think blue and black are... I really don't know what the order is to rank, like, which one is better than another. But Honden of Seeing Winds, drawing cards every turn is certainly good, and whittling your opponent's cards down is certainly great with the Night's Reach as well. Tons of elves here. That is more elves than there should be, I think. I'm just going to take a Wake Dancer. I don't expect to play it, but yeah, Timberwatch Elf and the other are definitely very good. And there's a Jungle Hollow, which I'll go ahead and take. And Necropotence makes it all the way back. I do not expect to play it, but I'll go ahead and take it because it's cool. And there's our splash, actually. That's convenient. We can play Scoured Barrens to splash the Honden of Night's Reach if need be. And if we get a bunch more, who knows? Maybe Necropotence will find its way in. Unlikely, however. So there's our Dualcaster Mage, a Messy Tome. Very messy from the looks of it. We've got a Counterspell, Second Thoughts, and a Peregrine Drake, I think, are going to be the picks here. So Counterspell, I would like to have 1 or maybe 2. Also, I think there's Memory Lapse, which is a very good counterspell as well. And then there's Second Thoughts, which we are lacking in removal. And this is one way to get a threatening creature out while replacing itself. But I think I just want to take another Peregrine Drake and just kind of keep playing evasive flyers that let us untap and play a second spell in the same turn. And I'm holding out for still a good card that capitalizes off these things. Obviously, like a Brago would be phenomenal. He lets you, if he deals combat damage to the enemy player, lets you choose any number of non-land permanents that you control and flicker them, exile them, and bring them right back. So with Peregrine Drakes, you just get to untap all of your lands every turn, which is pretty fantastic. But I think this is going to do more for us than the Second Thoughts for now. We'll have to hope and see if that holds true. There's a Sinkhole, so it's a nostalgic card. The original kind of like Strip Mine, Wasteland effect, if you could play all those in the same deck. Opponent never gets to cast a spell because you keep killing all their lands. We've got a Tragic Slip, which is a great removal spell if you have others to go along with it. And a Mistral Charger, but I think the pick is clearly going to be the Prodigal Sorcerer here. Great card. I think he was once called Tim, after the Monty Python character, Tim the Enchanter. So he's a win condition all on his own, and from what I understand, there are a bunch of 1/1s, or not 1/1s necessarily, but things with 1 toughness. You can actually see a couple of them here. The Mog Marshal and the Mistral Charger, as well as Giant Tortoise on the turns where it is for some reason tapped after attacking, I guess. But yeah, absolutely going to be taking the Prodigal Sorcerer here. He gets to kill a bunch of things, and you can just, when you're not in any danger, go after the opponent. Alright, well there's Memory Lapse, which I'd be happy to take, but I don't think anything can beat a Fact or Fiction here. This card is pretty ridiculous in Limited, as well as the other formats where it's legal. Great card. Reveal the top 5, and then your opponent gets to separate the cards into 2 piles. You take one and put the other into the grave. So, fantastic card. Pretty hard to argue against it. There's another Honden, but I don't think we're going to be playing 3 or 4 color Hondens just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take Fact or Fiction there. What do we got here? Field of Souls. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you get a 1/1 flying spirit. Just because of the fact that they fly, that could give them a reason, give me a reason to take that. There's also a Hymn to Turak, which is an amazing card, but I don't think we can quite yet splash it, unfortunately. This guy's not too bad. A 3-mana 2/2 with first strike that becomes a 3/3 as long as you just control another white creature, which we actually might not necessarily. We have the Rift Watcher, who's one, and a War Priest of Thune. Besides that, we don't really have too many white creatures, unfortunately. But I think I'm just going to take the Field of Souls. Basically, all of your creatures get to live a second time by turning into spirits, and they go very well with what is that card? Sprite Noble, a 2/2 that pumps them all up, toughness or damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that. There's another Deep Analysis, a Second Thoughts, a Monk Idealist. Not very good for us here, unfortunately. I guess if our Honden gets destroyed, we can bring it back. Also, she does work. I think it's a she. He or she works with Seal of Cleansing. Can use this multiple times. That's potentially a very strong play. We already have the 1 Deep Analysis, and as I said before, we are kind of lacking in removal, so I think I might go ahead and take Second Thoughts now. I'm glad that we took the Peregrine Drake that first time. Alright, a Calciderm, a 4-mana 5/5 with Shroud that sticks around for a couple of turns. Mishra's Factory. Gotta be very careful with this card. I remember it from way back when, playing it, but it seems like people even now kind of at times struggle with it. So it's a 2/2 when you turn it into a creature and attack with it, but when this thing blocks, it is generally a 3/3 because it becomes an assembly worker and it's still untapped, so you can use it to tap itself and give itself +1/+1 as it is an assembly worker. So very important to note that this creature often blocks as a 3/3. I'm going to go ahead and take Calciderm, I think, though. It's just a decent thing that can, I guess, deal some damage. It can definitely block for a number of turns, and if our flyers can't quite get the job done, then it might be what is needed to push through that big chunk of damage if our Skybreaker can't do it. Benevolent Bodyguard, another Timberwatch Elf. That is not going to be fun to play against the Elf deck here, if there is one. Gravedigger, I guess, to get back Calciderm or something once it has vanished. I don't think it exiles itself. Just sacrifice, yeah. And a Monk Idealist to get back any of our enchantments, which we don't have very many of. Not a whole lot for us here. I'm just going to take Gravedigger, I guess. I don't think we'll really be needing it. Intangible Virtue is, I guess, good with Field of Souls, Call the Skybreaker, although it isn't really necessary at that point. Definitely would go well in the Raise the Alarm deck with Flamekin Zealot and any other effect, giving you lots and lots of creature tokens. So I don't think we're going to be taking that. I don't think we're splashing red off the Swiftwater Cliffs. So I guess we take a Gaseous Form or a Pyroblast if we had to sideboard it against a control deck or something. Yeah, not a whole lot else for us here. Just going to take Gaseous Form, I guess. There's the Dualcaster Mage again. Shelter, Innocent Blood, and a Tome to draw some more cards. I don't think we can quite play this. I guess I'll take a Dualcaster Mage. I don't expect to actually play him or make use of him, but if we could splash him somehow, then maybe. Sinkhole, another Pyroblast. I don't really think I need any of these, or I'm particularly afraid of a Sinkhole. I might just take the Pyroblast. It's a pretty fantastic sideboard card against us, and there's just not much else here, unfortunately, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. Ticking Gnomes and Avarax, the Wildfire Emissary. I guess I could take the Ticking Gnomes. They are colorless, so we might be able to play them if need be, if we just really need a 3-mana blocker or something. And you can sacrifice them to maybe kill a creature. Might as well take them. Alright, I don't think we're going to be needing the Mongoose or Deadbird Shaman or anything like that. I don't think we're going to play Mindless Automaton. Comes in as a 4-mana 2/2. You can discard some cards to pump him up a bit, and then remove cards at will to draw cards. remove counters from him, rather. Might have misspoken. I'll just take him for now. And Innocent Blood or a Pangolin? I think I'm just going to take the Innocent Blood. I don't expect to play it, but we never know. Stupefying Touch. A decent sideboard card, I guess. You can play it on opponent-controlled Prodigal Sorcerers, and suddenly they can't do a whole lot. So we got to cut one or maybe two cards. I'm not sure how many we're going to play here. Maybe we play Ticking Gnomes or main deck some Seals of Cleansing or even a Stupefying Touch. Let's see if we can separate our creatures from spells. Alright. So we got a number of very impactful high-end cards. The Call of the Skybreaker and the Duplicant are largely our endgame, kind of. Besides that, we just kind of want to beat down with Phantom Monsters and Peregrine Drakes is the plan. So we want to get up to that point. Wish we had gotten some more 2-drops like those 2/1 flyers for 2 mana, the Pegasi. Unfortunately, we did not. Might be able to cut a card like Una's Grace or the Honden if we don't want to stretch our mana too much. We do just have the 1 Scoured Barrens. It's not like there's any fetch lands or anything like Evolving Wilds here. So it might be problematic to play Honden on time, but it does go quite well with its blue brother, the Honden of Seeing Winds. But I think between like Fact or Fiction, Deep Analysis, and Honden, the blue one, we don't really need Una's Grace. It's a great card. And it's the kind of thing we want to do is, you know, after turn 5 or 6, we play a Peregrine Drake, untap some lands, and we've got Una's Grace up or something. But the fact that we've got 7 and 2 plus, however many we want to cast Unexpectedly Absent for spells, already 1 expensive spell with Retrace on it, I don't think we really need or have time for a card like Una's Grace, although it does go quite well with the Worn Power Stone. I think we can afford to cut that. And Daze does go well with the Call of the Skybreaker. Later in the game, we can tap all 7 mana, use the Daze to bounce an island back to hand or something, and discard it to retrace this, if need be. So that's one reason to keep it, I suppose. Besides that, yeah, not a whole lot else I think I'm going to cut. We're lacking in creatures somewhat, although Call the Skybreaker certainly counts as one. Definitely needed some more 2-drops like Merfolk Looter or some such. Some more 2-mana flyers as well would have been great. But we'll try and do the best of what we have. Let's go ahead and combine these back and sort them. Try and get an idea of how our color split should be. We've got a number of double white casting cost cards, and besides that, just the Call the Skybreaker, but that being a 7-drop, I don't think we really need to worry too much about it. So it might be pretty evenly split between blue and white. We have 1 black off of the Scoured Barrens. I might play like 1 swamp to go along with it, and then these both count as white lands, one of which is also blue. So let's see what they recommend. Then we can play 1 swamp, just having an untapped source to also double the number of black sources we have for casting Honden on time. And then maybe we can cut a blue and add a white. So that'll put us at 7 white sources, 8 blue sources, and 2 black. Oh, it's also suggesting 2 mountains because of the Call of the Skybreaker. That will not be necessary, however. We can just cast those off of our islands. So let's up those up each by 1. That'll give us 9 blue, 8 white, which is about where we want to be, and then 2 black. I think that's going to do it. We don't want to go too low on the white, even though we only have 5 or 6 white cards, and we don't really even want to cast War Priest or Unexpectedly Absent until possibly later in the game. But I think just because of the double white here, and wanting to cast Calciderm early to get some hits in with it, so it can't just be chump blocked, is it's worth going down on blue and black mana. So I think I like the way we're shaping up here. Definitely an interesting draft. I saw a number of red-white and probably green-black picks if we had gone into green-black elves or the red-white go-wide strategy. Then we might have ended up with a much stronger deck. But blue-white flyers is it's a tried-and-true, I suppose, strategy. And if you're ever unfamiliar with the format, then it's not a terrible place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and run this out and hope for the best. Let's see how we do. Stay tuned, everybody.